Begin in a couple of moments. All rise. The Superior Court for the State of Washington, in and for the County of Kitsap, is now in session. The Honorable Russell W. Hartman presiding. Sitting en banc, Judge David Armstrong, Division II Court of Appeals, Judge J. Robin Hunt, Division II Court of Appeals. From the Kitsap County Superior Court, Judge M. Carlin Haberly, Judge Anna M. Laurie, Judge Leila Mills, Judge Ted Spearman, Judge Sally F. Olson, Judge Jeanette M. Dalton, Commissioner Thurman W. Lowens, Judge James I. Maddock, retired. From the Kitsap County District Court, Judge James M. Reel, Judge Marilyn G. Paja, Judge Stephen J. Holman, Judge Jeffrey J. Yons, Judge Dan Phillips, retired. From the Bremerton Municipal Court, Judge James Doctor.
Everybody can have a seat. Judge Mills was reminding me of that responsibility. Good morning, and welcome to our annual celebration of our country's commitment to the rule of law. The theme for this year's celebration is Law in the 21st Century, Enduring Traditions and Emerging Challenges. I'd like to take a moment to talk about our national constitution's relationship to this theme. Constitutions are a unique type of law that divides power between a government and its citizens, the governed. Constitutions limit the government's power. This concept is, the idea of dividing power between a government and its citizens is a relatively new one in the 5,000-year history of civilization as we understand it. The world's oldest written constitution is our own, which was adopted in 1789. Now, virtually every citizen knows that the President and the Congress cannot do things that are unconstitutional, and that the Supreme Court gets to tell the President and Congress when they have exceeded their powers. Why in the world should this work? Let's take a look at the real power relationships here. The President of the United States is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, the mightiest military force in the history of the world. Congress is in control of our nation's $2 trillion annual budget. That includes all the money for the armed services of the United States, and among other things, the entire budget for the United States Supreme Court. Let's compare the size of the court to the rest of the government. The last time I checked, the Supreme Court's total budget was much less than Kitsap County's general fund budget. The Supreme Court is composed of 9 justices, 18 law clerks, the Supreme Court's clerk's office, where they keep track of the files and the paperwork, a law library, and security. That's it. Why should the President stand down when the court tells the President not to? Why not simply say no? That's happened and does happen and is happening in many other places around the world, their constitutions notwithstanding. As near as I can tell, there have been only 5 occasions in the history of our country when the Supreme Court has said to the President, "You're out of bounds." And each time, the President has said okay and responded affirmatively to the court's order. The most recent was President George Bush, when the Congress told the President that he couldn't hold people indefinitely in Guantanamo without a trial process. Before that, President Bill Clinton was told that even though he was a sitting president, he was subject to civil process and lawsuits involving his alleged personal misconduct. Before that, the court told Richard Nixon that he had to respond to a subpoena from Congress in connection with its investigation of his possible personal criminal misconduct. Before that, Harry Truman nationalized the steel mills in the early 50s. He said the country was in crisis, the steel mills were on strike, the steel was needed to fight the Korean War, and the U.S. Supreme Court said, you don't have the authority to do that. And before that, the very first time that the Supreme Court put its hand up and told the president that he was out of line involved Abraham Lincoln. And even during the extreme crisis to our country that was posed by the Civil War, the Supreme Court said to President Lincoln, you do not have the authority to suspend a citizen's right to petition the courts to be released from imprisonment, the right of habeas corpus, which is part of and enshrined in our Constitution from the start. Why do these limits on power work? Let's go back to our theme, law in the 21st century, modern times, if you will, enduring traditions and emerging challenges. Our system of laws works because of our commitment to observing and enforcing the limits on the government's power has been an enduring tradition of our constitutional system. And this enduring tradition must survive every emerging challenge: terrorism, war, economic calamity, natural disasters, whatever, if the freedoms we promise ourselves are to be sustained. So far, our system has survived every challenge, and welcome to our celebration of that success. President Olson?
Good morning. I'm Steve Olson, President of the Kitsap County Bar Association, and on behalf of the Kitsap County Bar Association and the courts, I welcome you to 2010 Law Day ceremony. Our keynote speaker will be Charles Wiggins. Charlie's been an attorney in Washington State for 34 years and is recognized throughout the state as one of the best appellate attorneys in the state. He's been a judge on the Court of Appeals and a Superior Court Judge Pro Tem. He has served on many committees and boards in the Washington State Bar Association and the ABA, and was chair of the Washington State Bar Association Disciplinary Board. He's been a frequent speaker and author on legal topics. Before becoming an attorney, Charlie became an Eagle Scout and was a captain in the Army Intelligence Corps. Charlie has also been an active member of the community, serving on the Bainbridge Island Civil Service Commission and the Kitsap Sun editorial board. He has volunteered for Boy Scouts, Campfire Boys and Girls. This year, the Kitsap County Bar Association gave Charlie the Humanitarian Award for his work with Habitat for the Humanity. He was named 2004 Volunteer of the Year by the Union Gospel Mission for his pro bono work in Seattle. Would you please welcome Charlie Wiggins?
Good morning. As we talk about enduring traditions in the law, I'd like to focus this morning on the relationship between law and justice. And what I want to say is this: law is a noun, justice is a verb. Law is a noun, justice is a verb. Laws are something that are passed, something that are announced. Laws are something that we observe, something that we obey, hopefully obey, respect. But justice is something we do. Some years back, an observer sat in a courtroom of a judge, not in this state, in another state, and was somewhat troubled by what he observed. And during a recess, he asked to see the judge, and he said to the judge, "Judge, you're not doing justice." And the judge looked at him and said, "Justice? This is a court of law. It's not a court of justice." And we find that disturbing because we expect our courts to do justice. After all, we call the building that our Supreme Court sits in the temple of justice, a religious connotation as well as justice. And the 9 judges who sit on the Supreme Court we call justices. So it would be strange if our courts were courts of law and not courts of justice. And we think of our nation as founded on principles of justice. When we pledge allegiance, what do we pledge allegiance to? A nation with liberty and justice for all. And so I want to talk for a few moments about the relationship between law and justice and ask the question, was that judge right? Are these courts of law and not courts of justice? But first, I want to thank the Kitsap County Bar for the opportunity to address you today, and thank the judges for the opportunity to be here. I feel very weird turning my back and talking with my back to the judges. It's a very strange phenomenon. Usually, my back is to the audience and my face is to the judges. But I want to thank you, too, the audience, for being here and being here to honor with us the respect for the law and the rule of law in our society. So let's talk about justice for a moment. Philosophers have debated the meaning of justice for thousands of years, from the time of Plato, who wrote in the Republic of a just society governed by philosopher kings. And our ancient religious texts, both Jewish, Christian, Muslim, all talk about justice. Justice is a major theme. And all the way through the centuries, philosophers have debated what is justice and what is it that makes justice? What are we looking at? What are we thinking of when we think of justice? As recently as 1971, Professor John Rawls wrote a hugely influential treatise, A Theory of Justice. And since then, for 40 years, the philosophers have debated, was he right in his theory of justice as fairness? Or is there some other theory that accounts for justice? Is it a property rights theory that accounts for justice? These are hugely important debates and hugely important discussions, and they drive a lot that happens in our society, and they affect all of us, consciously or unconsciously. But I have to confess to you, I don't find these philosophical definitions of justice very helpful as a judge or as a lawyer. And I don't find these philosophical definitions very helpful in day-to-day life. And so I want to step back and explore with you a more personalized view of justice and a view of justice that I think we can apply day to day. And the starting point for that really is to ask the question, what would make a just society? And a just society, I think, a society that is ideal or utopian, would be a society where people are in harmony, people are in right relationship, because that's what society is all about. It's about people being in relationship. And what does that really look like? What does that mean? What it means to me is that everyone in society is honoring the duties and the obligations that run among us all. Let's be a little more concrete about that. Take an example. I'm married. I have obligations to my wife. I have duties to my wife. Some of them are pretty low-level duties. Some of them are, pretty minor things like telling her where I'm going to be, what time I'm going to be home for dinner. That's a little more important. And some are very important, things like being faithful, having fidelity in our relationship. And every one of us is in relationships like this. I have relationships with my kids, my children, my grown children, and I have duties towards them. And I have relationships with my employees, and I have obligations to them to be fair and to treat them fairly and let them know what my expectations are. I have obligations to clients. And if you drove to this event today, you had obligations to people you don't even know, people who were passing you on the road, and you had obligations to drive carefully and exercise caution and to obey the traffic laws. And we all have obligations to obey the criminal law. If not, Mr. Hauge, our prosecutor, will have something to say about the matter. And not only do I owe obligations to others, but they owe obligations back to me. And so we're all in this network, this web of obligations. And if we honor those obligations and we fulfill the duties that are imposed on us, we're in right relationship, and that is a just society. That is a good society. Now, where do these obligations come from? Well, the law is a primary source of obligations and duties that are imposed on us. And it's not just the statutory law that's passed by the legislature. It's what Judge Hartman was talking about earlier, the Constitution, the constitutional law. Because the Constitution doesn't just govern obligations among the branches of government. It has a vertical component as well. We have obligations under the Constitution. The government has obligations to us under the Constitution. And so the constitutional law is a source of duty. The common law is a source of duty and obligation. That great body of law that has developed organically over centuries as judges have wrestled with the problems that arise in society, and that ever-evolving body of law that adjusts to changing conditions. And so those are sources of duties. But there are others as well. Our religious traditions create duties and create obligations, and those are important too. Custom and tradition create obligations. And human beings, as very inventive and creative people that we are, invent duties all the time. We usually call those contracts or agreements. We impose duties upon ourselves as we do that. Now, when those duties are breached, there's a broken relationship or there's a damaged relationship. And what happens in that? Well, justice comes into play at that point. Justice is the process of setting a relationship back to rights and bringing harmony and right relationship back into a relationship. That's why I say that justice is a verb. It's a process. It's something we do to create right relationship. And there may be all sorts of things that are necessary to create a right relationship. And that's what our courts are doing. When someone comes into court with an injury, they've been injured by the negligence of another person, they're coming in and asking that a relationship be set right. And the way the court does that, in collaboration with the jury, the judge sets an amount and says, we're going to compensate this with money damages. The relationship has come out of balance because someone has injured another. Now there has to be a payment to bring that relationship back into balance. And when spouses can no longer remain married and come into court to dissolve their marriage, the court has to create or forge a new relationship. And the court has to decide what duties will be imposed in that relationship and will create a right relationship to move forward so that these two people can move forward free of their former obligations, but in recognition of the history and the process of what has gone on between them. So that's the process of justice. And it's important because it's helpful in a number of ways. Now, I guess we have to step back and ask, having said all of this, having talked about duties and having talked about justice as a verb, as a process, as dynamic, have we really said anything useful? Or have we just stated the obvious? I think it's useful in this way. I think that we need, as judges and lawyers, to look at cases and disputes that come before us as relationship problems. It's not just a matter of taking laws and applying abstract principles to human problems. It's a matter of trying to restore right relationship. That's what we're doing as judges and lawyers. And it's very helpful also in interpersonal relationships, not just when you go to court, not just in practicing law, but when I'm in relationship with my wife, it's helpful to me to think about the duties that run. Have I breached a duty? How do I bring harmony back into that relationship? And not just with my wife, but with every relationship I find myself in. I think it's helpful, too, in another sense, and that has to do with those who are less fortunate, those who are in poverty or those who are in some disability. Because I submit to you that being in poverty, being deprived, is a broken relationship. We should have a society in which all people have the opportunity to care for themselves, to care for their families, and to be helpful, useful, and productive citizens. The pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as the Declaration of Independence says. And so I look at poverty as a broken relationship, and it's a situation that needs to be righted. Someone needs to be lifted out of that and helped out of that and put back on the track where they can be a productive citizen. And I think we have that obligation. Our great faith traditions all teach us that we have that obligation. And I'm proud to be a member of a bar association that, as Steve said, came together last year and this year and raised the money to build a house in Suquamish, a habitat house for a mother and her 3 children and 2 younger sisters. And a house that was built a few years earlier than that, again, that the bar came together and raised the money for a habitat house on Bainbridge. And if you feel that maybe you didn't participate in that, it's not too late. We're still working on raising a little money. So give us a call if you'd like to write a check, because we still need a little more money for that Suquamish house. And I'm proud to be a part of a bar association that helps those who can't help themselves through providing legal services and through pro bono services and the Kitsap Legal Services and the great services that are provided to people within our community. And so I think that it's helpful to think of those things in all those different aspects. So I just want to leave you with the thought to think of the law today on this Law Day of 2010 as a path to justice, as a tool to show us our duties, to show obligations, and as a tool to impose on us the obligation to try to create right relationship and remain in right relationship. And the challenge to us as judges and as lawyers is to think of our role in terms of relationship and in human relationship and caring about restoring right relationship. And as individuals to think in the same terms. And I just want to leave you with that challenge to not just think about justice and the law, but to do justice and to act on justice, because justice is a verb. Thank you very much.
And Charlie, we have a recognition of our thanks for your work in providing today's speech, presented to the Honorable Charles K. Wiggins, former judge, Washington State Court of Appeals, as honored guest and speaker at the Kitsap County Law Day ceremony, May 7th, 2010, presented by the Kitsap County Bar Association. Our next speaker is Captain Pamela Ball. Captain Ball is the commanding officer for the Navy Legal Service Office, Northwest in Bremerton. Captain Ball graduated from the University of Detroit Law School in 1988 and joined the Navy Judge Advocate General Corps after graduation. Her first tour of duty was in Spain, and after that she served on several ships. And since then she has served in virtually every corner of the United States, from Portsmouth to San Diego to Bremerton. She has been the commander of the Navy Legal Service Office here in Bremerton since July of 2008. Captain Ball will be presenting the Outstanding Legal Professional Award.
I'd just like to begin by saying, wow, I did not even have any idea when I was asked to speak here what this was all about, I'll be honest. The individual who had done last year's presentation was Captain Thalid, the Rosso, but he was busy packing out and everything, so I didn't get a chance to get a brief from him of who was going to be here or what this all involved. But I feel honored to be here, not only to recognize one of my individuals for award, but to have been asked to give a brief speech as well. And I have to admit, when I was asked to do a speech on Law Day, I said, I think I better get on the internet and do a little bit of research, because even though I think everybody knows Law Day, 1 May, everybody understands that, do we really know how Law Day was ever established in this country? Now, some of you may say, absolutely, I know. I did not. So I did a little bit of research and did want to share a little bit of that with you. What I discovered, and this does make sense, obviously, is it was through the great efforts of the American Bar Association that it exists today. But it was President Eisenhower who actually recognized Law Day when he proclaimed in 1958 that henceforth May 1st of each year would be Law Day. Law Day wasn't actually codified until April 7, 1961. But that, again, was unique because I didn't realize that. Some of you may have, I did not. But in looking at the law actually states, and bear with me, I'm just going to read this because it goes into what I want to say. May 1 is Law Day, is designated that for the purpose of the fact that it is a special day of celebration by the people of the United States in appreciation of their liberties and the reaffirmation of their loyalty to the United States and their rededication to the ideals of equality and justice under law in their relations and with each other and with other countries, and for the cultivation of respect for law that is vital to the democratic way of life. Obviously, in the military, I focused on, okay, not only is Law Day important for us in the United States, but also in dealing with other countries, other nations. Because in the military, we often are asked to assist other nations in establishing rule of law. Particularly right now, we see that in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And I had the privilege of personally going to Iraq and assisting Iraq citizens in establishing rule of law in their country. I worked with the Minister of Human Rights, and I also worked with the Iraqi judges there in the Central Criminal Court of Iraq and helped them through their process, through their criminal law process in prosecuting detainees that the coalition forces had picked up. I thought that was a wonderful experience, and it gave me not only an opportunity to work with the Iraqis in helping them establish rule of law, but I was honored to work with the State Department, the U.S. attorneys, FBI, U.S. Marshals, government organizations, different services, the British, the Polish. I mean, it was just a wonderful experience, wonderful opportunity to assist other countries in trying to establish rule of law in their country. I think recognizing this special day is more important probably now than it was back when it was codified into law. I think as we celebrate the rule of law, we need to keep focused on, the global era, what is occurring in today's environment. And matters, as I mentioned, with Iraqi, or with the Iraqi citizens, matters such as human rights, criminal justice, human migration, environmental regulation, these are shared not only, just within our own country, but they are concerns that are shared with other nations as well. And as we go forward into the 21st century, we need to keep in mind that it provides us with an opportunity to understand and appreciate the emerging challenges and enduring traditions of law, and we must do our part as legal professions, whether you're in the military, whether you're, practicing law in the state of Washington, whether you're in another state, it doesn't matter. Wherever you are, we are the legal professions, and it's our responsibility to make sure that we allow others to understand the importance of law, the dedication to establishing law, maintaining law in our country, and to respect laws not only here but in the other nations. And because I was asked to be brief, that is my brief speech. Okay, at this time, I would ask Lieutenant Matt Schultz to come forward. Matt is one of our lieutenants over at the Naval Legal Service Office, and he was selected this year for the Outstanding Navy Legal Professional Award in the Northwest region by Commander Navy Region Northwest for the period 1 April through 31 March 2010. During that period, Matt has done a tremendous amount at my office. I asked him personally to go over to my Everett office. He's actually based at the Bremerton office, but I handpicked him above more senior personnel to go over to my Everett office and be the acting branch head during a period of transition over in that office because of his maturity and because of his leadership skills. Matt excelled in that role. Not only did he make the office run more efficient, he improved morale at that office, He also, during the same time that he was doing this, he was also the voluntary income tax assistance officer. So he was responsible for making sure that the taxes of active duty retirees, dependents in the Northwest region were taken care of. He did an outstanding job in that, and in fact, over the period of time for tax year 2008, which ran into 2009, obviously, there were a total of 4,700 active duty members who received the assistance, and with refunds of over $8.3 million. So I think that's quite impressive, him overseeing that program. And I have to tell you, for those of you that know anything about the military, military is downsizing, if that's the word you want to use, but manning is an issue. And the voluntary income tax assistance program that we have, it is a mandated program that the Judge Advocate General has been told, you will have this program, but you get no funding, you get no manning to support the funding. So we have to beg, borrow, do everything we can to not only get manning to support the offices, to get supplies, to get computers, to get desks, to find a place to have these offices, these site offices. And we do it at our Everett office, our Whidbey Island office, our Bangor office, and our Bremerton office. So it is quite a feat to accomplish and to do it successfully, and Matt did that. He also has been, since leaving the VITA program and coming back over to the Bremerton area, he has been a defense counsel and has excelled in his defense role. And I know we've got the prosecutor here and others, but, you know, we work together, defense, prosecution. So Matt has done a superb job, zealous representation. He's, in a lot of his admin boards, the results were no misconducts, and so the people remained on active duty. In an Article 120 charge, I believe it was a rape charge, he actually got the charge dismissed prior to the Article 32 hearing, which is equivalent to a grand jury hearing in the civilian sector. But he really did zealous representation of his folks. And again, because of this is why he was chosen for this award. And it was great pleasure that I'm able to congratulate him. He did not know until this morning that he received this award. I tried to keep it from him. He knew he was receiving some type of award, but he didn't know what it was all about. And I think it's just wonderful that you were selected. I think if any of you realize, it was open to all the Northwest Navy professionals, the civilian attorneys, as well as the active duty attorneys, and legal men were also, which is equivalent to paralegals, were up for the award. So congratulations on the job well done.
Our next speaker is Commissioner Thurman Lowens, known among the legal community as the Commish. Commissioner Lowens may be the hardest working judicial officer in the courthouse, though all of the judges work hard.
Thank you.
I'm still tough. Every Thursday afternoon, Commissioner Lowens reads stacks of pleadings submitted on behalf of divorcing couples, and then hears the motions on Friday mornings, which can be very contentious. He also hears domestic violence petitions, dependency hearings, mental health commitment hearings. He's the local expert on the ever-changing domestic relations law and procedures. He's been a court commissioner since 1994. Before that, he was the hearing examiner, the land use hearing examiner for the county, and a judge pro tem. He began practicing law in Kitsap County in 1978 and was Kitsap County Bar President. Prior to coming to Kitsap County, the Commish was a Judge Advocate General in the U.S. Navy, serving 22 years.
Where'd you get all that stuff?
In active reserve duty. And Commissioner Lowens will recognize the juvenile court volunteer youth court participants. Commissioner Lowitz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. I'm here to honor and ask you to honor the participants in our youth court. We established the youth court 9 years ago. It's a diversion program. Diversion is an alternative to the offender process when a kid screws up and violates the law, if it's a first offense. Within the discretion and authority of the juvenile department and Mr. Heidi's office, they may well be offered the opportunity to participate in diversion. Diversion is basically they will acknowledge their guilt, and then they will have to do something to reimburse the county, the community, society for their failings. The interesting part about youth court is that the adults don't have anything to do with it. It's the kids that do it. And so the kids sit there and we train them. They come in, they act as advocates, prosecutors in defense, clerks, bailiffs, judges, and jurors. And it's the only juvenile forum in the state. The process is the only juvenile forum in the state by which a juvenile has a right to a jury trial. And so the advocates will argue to the jury as to what type of sentence should be administered to this offending youth who has pled guilty to whatever it was. It may well be shoplifting or assault or minor possession or something else. And the hope is, and the experience is borne out, that when they receive a sentence from their peers, they respond more appropriately, they learn from it, and they don't come back, which is the whole goal. So my purpose today is to honor those participants. I've been trying to see through the lights, but I couldn't see who was here and who wasn't, so I will go with what Pam Martin has presented to me for those who are here, and hopefully they're here. We have about 45 kids who do it. They have other jobs, specifically school, so they may well be there today, but is Kylie Thomas present? Come on up, please, Kylie. Carissa Cruz. She's in school, I'm told. Katie Wardell. Jay Jose. Jessica Gallegos. Her brother's not here probably either. And Erica Copeland is not here either. More hard-working students. Emily Elam. Okay. We also have mentors that help us with this. We don't send the youth out to do it on their own. They have attorneys who come in and spend their own time and hours working with them as they go through the process. They help them prep up the case and help make suggestions for arguments. And we've got several of them here. If my eyes are working, I've got Steve Greer back there. Did I see Jennifer Andrews back there too? And Emily Butcher's back there. And who else? Any one of our mentors that I'm not seeing, please stand up so we can acknowledge you, please. Jamie's back there. Oh, you're all so shy. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Our next speaker is Clay Wilson, President of the Kitsap Legal Services. He will be making a presentation of appreciation certificates to Kitsap Legal Services volunteers. Clay?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, your honors. We're here today representing Kitsap Legal Services, and we're going to recognize 3 outstanding members of the Kitsap Bar who have all excelled at providing pro bono services to low-income citizens in Kitsap County. Before we do that, I'd like to introduce our Executive Director, Alicia Freeman, and she is going to tell us a little bit about KLS and the outstanding work of these attorneys.
Every year attorneys in Kitsap County volunteer hundreds of hours of service to helping low-income individuals and families gain greater access to civil justice. Why is this so important? Because civil legal issues often involve critical areas of life, such as housing, employment, and personal safety, just to name a few. Legal representation by skilled attorneys can help litigants resolve matters quickly before situations deteriorate. This benefits not only the clients that the attorneys represent, but also the court system and the community at large, because it helps to prevent what could be a chain reaction of costly social problems that can result. Often, one legal issue will lead to another, to another, to another, if they are not resolved quickly and fairly. So the volunteer attorneys today who are being awarded, as Clay mentioned, have put in an exceptional number of hours providing pro bono direct representation to clients involved in civil court proceedings. And so for those of you who are here, as Clay reads your names, will you please come up?
Let me first read these commendations. They all say, in celebration of Law Day 2010, Kitsap Legal Services is pleased to award the Certificate of Commendation and Appreciation of your outstanding and devoted service in support of greater access to justice for low-income residents of Kitsap County. Our first recipient is Lainey Patterson. Carrie Stevens. I'll give that one to Alicia instead. Elise Collins, are you here, Elise? Okay, thank you very much.
Our next two presenters are Judges Jeff Jans and James Doctor. Judge Doctor has been Bremerton Municipal Court Judge since 1988 and has twice been named by the State Judicial Association as Judge of the Year. Prior to becoming a judge, he practiced criminal law in Kitsap County and was a Bainbridge Island City Councilman. Judge Jeff Jans was appointed District Court Judge last year. He was such an obvious choice that nobody else bothered to apply. Before becoming a judge, Judge Jans practiced criminal law and became the Chief Criminal Deputy for Kitsap County, Deputy Prosecutor for Kitsap County in 1995. In that role, he transformed the practice of law in District and Municipal Court, instilling a much-needed professionalism in that practice. In 1995, Judge Jans received the Professionalism Award from the Kitsap County Bar Association and was named Super Lawyer by Washington Law and Politics in 2004. He received the Washington State Bar Association Professionalism Award. He's also former Kitsap County Bar Association President. Judges Doctors and Jans will present the Law Day Student Essay Awards.
Good morning, thank you. I am Judge Doctor. This is the professional judge, the one with the professional award. I get to tell you about an annual tradition that the Kitsap County Bar Association is involved with in Law Day. They sponsor a student essay contest and give awards, including financial award, to outstanding essay writers from grades 6 through 12. Apparently you have to be smarter than a 5th grader to be in this contest. The 6th graders compete against 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, and the high school is 10th, 11th, and 12th. A group of lawyers and judges get together prior to this week to review the essays. There were 67 essays presented this year. The judges grade them based on the following criteria in order of importance: originality of thought, depth of reasoning, clarity of expression, and organization. I'm glad that that's the last one, an area of importance. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to summarize for you what the questions were. Before I do, I'm going to acknowledge Jamie Huff in the back underneath the exit sign. She's the one who came up with these questions. She works as an Assistant Attorney General for Washington State. Thank you, Jamie, for the questions. And also I'm going to acknowledge Gina Buskirk, who was involved in organizing all the recipients of these awards and their families and friends who could be here today to celebrate their winnings of these awards. So the questions were as follows. The first one pertained to the dwindling populations of bluefin tuna due to overharvesting. And international community sought to limit the number of catch or the number of fish harvest each year by every country, but 3 major fishing countries refused to comply. The question then is, what mechanisms should be implemented to encourage compliance, and are trade sanctions effective, or would you propose some other alternative? Question number 2 is about health care. Specifically, should access to health care be a fundamental right under our Constitution? And how should health care in the U.S. be provided, funded, and regulated? And question number 3 had to do with illegal downloading of copyrighted material. How can illegal downloading be controlled? Are the current laws working? Are they even enforceable? How can we accommodate copyright law with universal internet connectivity and social networking? Interestingly, so we have 3 winners from junior high and 3 from high school. Interestingly, each of the 3 at each level picked a different question. That's just how it worked out. The 3rd place winner for junior high is awarded to Carter Gale. Could Carter Gale come up, please? Carter is a 6th grader at Kingston Middle School. You can stay up here. He wrote about the bluefin tuna issue. He decided that applying trade sanctions should be done, but very cautiously. He noted that many historians believe that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor because of their frustration over trade sanctions from the decades before. The 2nd place junior high award is awarded to Christina Height. Christina Height here. Christina is a 9th grader at West Sound Academy. Her essay had to do with downloading copyrighted material. It was entitled, "The Digital Millennium, an Irrelevant War." And in that essay, she noted that copyright laws are archaic. And the 1st place for junior high goes to Liam Gallivan. Liam is also a 9th grader at West Sound Academy. He wrote about health care. And I've chosen to, I'm going to quote from the 1st place essays only because of time limitations. But Liam asked, if the government gets involved in health care, who would be qualified to make medical decisions about the types of medical treatment needed or the kinds of medications prescribed? Isn't this decision best left to one's own doctor? Would one's life expectancy and usefulness have to be evaluated in order to determine whether they merit the most aggressive therapies and treatments? Government should provide a framework which allows people to make individual choices, whether they are good or bad, and not abridge their rights to make choices for themselves. Now we'll go to the high school. 3rd place high school winner goes to Kendall Karcher. Kendall is a 10th grader at Bainbridge High School. She won this award. She actually won the 1st place award 2 years ago when she was in junior high. This year she wrote about the healthcare issue, and she used the word profligate Now, how many knows what profligate means? I did not know what profligate meant. Apparently, it means wasteful, and she noted that some patients' profligate use of costly services must be changed. The second place award goes to Brian Peterson. Brian Peterson, come up, please. Brian is also at Bainbridge Island High School. He's in the 11th grade. He wrote about the bluefin tuna. His essay was entitled On the High Risks and Minimal Benefits of Trade Sanctions, and he made compelling arguments as to why he opposes trade sanctions. And finally, the first place of the high school category goes to Christopher Campbell. Christopher is an 11th grader at Olympic High School. He wrote about illegally downloaded content. And Christopher, I'm sorry there aren't more police officers here today. Christopher analogized the pervasiveness of downloading illegal material and the difficulty of enforcing copyright laws with speeding. He described in vivid detail the experience of being pulled over by a trooper and being asked, "Do you know how fast you're going?" His response, "No, sir, but I know I was just going with the flow of traffic." One speeding ticket later, he realized that everyone else is doing it is not a good defense for breaking the law. He writes, "Those who create music, art, and other copyrighted material help us to enjoy life and make our world a better place. Those who create these products are entitled to reimbursement for their work. While I would agree that preventing any downloading from happening is next to impossible, I believe the laws against it are necessary, and we must answer the questions about who is responsible for the crime, what resources do we spend on them, and is enforcement effective enough to justify those resources?" So excellent job from all 6 of you. Thank you for your participation. Hopefully you'll be participating next year. And let's have a big round of applause for the 6 candidates. Congratulations.
And for those of you who are wondering, Judge Jans does actually talk, but it is hard getting a word in when Judge Doctor has the microphone. It's difficult to say in a few words all that Jeff Tolman has done in our community. He's practiced in Paulsbo since 1978 with the law firm of Roof, Tolman & Kirk. And together with his partners, he created the Paulsbo CLE, which brought some of the most famous attorneys in the country to Little Norway, including 2 U.S. Supreme Court justices. Jeff has served on the Washington State Board of Governors and has been a Paulsbo Municipal Court judge since the mid-1990s. He's a what's the word, profligate? Profligate. He has been a prolific writer and speaker on the civil practice of law and is a mentor to most of the attorneys in Kitsap County. More than any other attorney, I think Jeff is the one person who's most responsible for making Kitsap County the best place to practice law. Jeff will be presenting the Kitsap County Bar Association Merrill Wallace Scholarship.
Members of the bench, ladies and gentlemen, many of you knew Merrill Wallace. Merrill was the longest continuing practicing lawyer in Kitsap County history, and I dare say 100 years from now, whoever presents this award will be able to say the same thing. For many, Merrill practiced, I think, 65 years in Bremerton. Merrill was a friend to many of us, a mentor to most of us, and sometimes he was a harsh taskmaster if you had a case against him and were not living up to your ethical and your sweaty standards of being a good lawyer. Merrill was the member of the first board of Olympic College and has been a staunch supporter since the college was organized. The committee presently consists of Kathy Schultz, John Mitchell, and myself, and we can award up to 2 scholarships to Olympic College to pay tuition. One of the great byproducts of Law Day is I always leave this proceeding more optimistic, more hopeful, and more proud of the next generation who will take the baton from those of us in practice. This was no different this year as we got the applications for these scholarships. This year we've chosen to award 2. And I'm going to read a bit out of the letters of recommendation. Letters of recommendation are interesting things, and I've always been interested in them since my law partners came up with one for a staff member leaving who Mike Kirk described as close as we'll come to winning lotto. We were thrilled that they got a new job as they were thrilled to have a new job. The letter of recommendation said, "Dear Mr. Jones, you'll be lucky to get her to work for you." So having some experience with letters of recommendation, I want to talk about what's been written about these youngsters. I'd like Kayla Young and Nathan Pope, please, to come forward. Kayla is a senior at North Kitsap High School, carries a 3.6 grade point average. Her recommendation said that a bunch of her teachers were contacted, and she was described as the most thoughtful, pleasant, nice, responsible student I've had in my 23 years of teaching. Her character and integrity stand alone. She's always willing to help others, adults and peers alike, and brings an unfailingly positive attitude to every task. She's an excellent student and a lovely person. In fact, wrote her recommender, it's the longest list of accomplishments by a senior I have ever seen. And I will tell you that both of these students wrote heartfelt thank you notes that showed their great depth of their character. And Kayla, in hers, you know, as an adult, sometimes things just touch you. And she said, "I can now tell people I'm going to be a college student." And we're very proud of Kayla, and we're very honored to present this scholarship. Nathan is a senior at Klahowya High School. And Mr. James, the school counselor, knows how to get your attention right away. In describing Nathan, he said, "It is with a mixture of great pleasure and a touch of sadness I write this letter of recommendation. It's sad Nathan will graduate and leave our school, but I've had the joy and the opportunity to know this young man and tell you that he represents the best of his generation. The future of our community is in good hands with Nathan." He asked some staff members to describe Nathan in 2 words. They included passionate and compassionate, talented and at ease with himself, mature and funny, moral and resilient, and busy and kind. It was very clear from Nathan's application and his heartfelt thank you to all of us who support the scholarship fund that he is looking forward to a future in healthcare. And ladies and gentlemen, Merrill Wallace, were he here, as his son is, and I believe his grandson, would be very proud to be some small part of helping these outstanding students in their future. Nathan, thank you.
This is the part of the program where I get to say a few words. May it please the court. You are lucky in the fact that Captain Ball and I researched at the same website, thus limiting the first 2 pages of my speech. In calling for the celebration of Law Day this year, the American Bar Association stated, as we begin the 2nd decade of the 21st century, the law is changing dramatically as it seeks to shape and adapt to new conditions. Economic markets are becoming global. Transactions require cultural adaptation and understanding. Populations are more mobile, and communication technologies such as the internet bridge distances and time zones to form new communities around the world. In such a world, all of us must renew our commitment to the enduring principles of law, become knowledgeable about other legal systems, recognize the need to adapt our practices, and acquire new cultural understandings. In a global era, matters such as human rights, criminal justice, intellectual property, business transactions, dispute resolution, human migration, and environmental regulation become not just international issues between nations, but shared concerns. Law Day 2010 provides us with an opportunity to understand and appreciate the emerging challenges and enduring traditions of the law in the 21st century. As stated by the ABA, the legal community in Kitsap County is constantly evolving to meet the needs of the community. Some examples of this are the drug court, started by Judge J. Roof, which is successfully turning drug offenders into productive citizens. The juvenile court, drug court, started by Judge Leonard Costello and now presided over by Judge Anna Laurie, is addressing emerging drug and alcohol problems before they become ingrained addictions. The juvenile court's truancy court is working to keep kids in school. The dependency drug court, started by Judge Carlin Haberly, is helping families torn apart by drugs reunite. Judge James Reel of the District Court has transformed the court response to domestic violence, making Kitsap County a model followed across the country. Our juvenile department uses a risk assessment tool to identify kids at risk of serious reoffense and provide needed services to those kids before they reoffend, thus reducing serious crime in this county. And all of these efforts are supported and coordinated with our prosecutor, Russ Hauge. Our attorneys are also adapting their practices to meet the community needs with alternate dispute resolution such as mediation and collaborative law. Winston Churchill said a lot of great things. One of those is that we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. The attorneys in Kitsap County make their lives and the lives of many others in the community by giving back to the community. Most of the attorneys in this county donate thousands of hours of pro bono time to indigent clients through Kitsap County Legal Services. We volunteer for local charities. There are many examples. Judge Leela Mills reads to the blind. Judge Sally Olson does search and rescue with our dogs. Charlie Wiggins has raised thousands of dollars for Habitat to the Humanity. Roger Sherrard is helping the Albanian courts retool in a post-communist era. Lynn Fleshbein has served on many boards, including Kitsap Humane Society, Kitsap Dispute Resolution, and United Way. These local heroes and many more like them make me proud to serve as the president of the Kitsap County Bar Association. Finally, I'd like to thank our Law Day Committee for their good work in organizing this event. Jamie Huff, Gina Buskirk, Jennifer Forbes, and Paul Fieldstead. I also want to thank the attorneys and judges who read the student essays and chose the winners. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Judge Marilyn Peja. Judge Peja has been a district court judge since 1998. Prior to that, she practiced law in Kitsap County and was the Gig Harbor Municipal Court judge for 14 years. She was also a district court judge pro tem and a superior court commissioner. In 2008, she was elected president of the District and Municipal Court Association of Judges and serves on many judicial committees and is on the board of the Washington Judicial Administration. Judge Peja has also served on many community boards and was president of the YWCA. Judge Peja will be presenting this year's Liberty Bell Award winner.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for everyone who's here. It's always a great ceremony and a wonderful opportunity to celebrate Law Day with all of you. The county commissioners have loaned us this room today, and I see Commissioner Garrido is in the back of the room. For those of you who've been to Law Day before, we've done it sometimes in a very small courtroom, and at about this time, people are taking off their coats, and really, this is a wonderful improvement. I want to thank all of you for being here for Law Day and for everything that you do every day to ensure that the rule of law is the foundation of our society. The Liberty Bell Award is the most prestigious award given by the Kitsap County Bar Association. The award is made annually, generally to a non-lawyer, to recognize community service that has strengthened the American system of freedom under the law. We look for individuals who have contributed to effective functioning of our government, promoted better understanding of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and our laws, someone who has encouraged respect for the law and the courts, and who has stimulated citizens' duties, rights, and responsibilities. Today I'm honored to have the opportunity to tell you about this year's honoree, Mr. Sean Duttry. Sean is accompanied here today by his wife Kathy, who's also a South Kitsap school teacher, by the principal of South Kitsap High School, Jerry Holston, and the assistant superintendent, Dr. Kurt Wagner, as well as the director of career and technical education, Dr. Tom Mosby, and they're all sitting here in the front row, and I'm hopeful that you'll be able to greet them when we're done. Mr. Duttry was raised in the Gig Harbor area and began teaching at South Kitsap High School in the Computer Science Technical Education Department in 1997. About 5 years ago, Mr. Duttry created a Introduction to Business Law class with only one session available at one quarter at the high school. It was an elective class, and the demand was so high that by the second quarter there were 2 sessions, and I think by the third quarter there were 3. By the following year, an advanced class had been developed because of the demand of the students and the responsiveness of the high school to the wishes of the students. Mr. Duttry has worked personally to develop the curriculum with the assistance of the Kitsap County business and professional community, which is part of the outreach that's required for that. But it's really Mr. Duttry's enthusiasm for the subject that has continued to increase the enrollment in this elective class that has benefited so many at the high school. And for those of you, many of you, obviously, that participate in these high school classes, they are a busy place. Students are jealous of the kinds of classes that they choose for their electives, and it really says a lot for Mr. Duttry's enthusiasm. The classes have visited the Kitsap County Corrections Center 44 times, with 20 students in each visiting class. That's almost 1,000 students that get this tour of the corrections facility and all of the forensics and other aspects of that. Lawyers, many Kitsap County Bar Association members, including Matt Klukas, Mike Altman, Eric Fong, and others have spoken to the classes, including judges. Members of the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office have been regular speakers, and I think there have been speakers as well from other law enforcement agencies, including the Selective Services, where they got to see counterfeit money. The class covers contracts and criminal constitutional law, as you may expect, and these are issues of great interest to the students. In addition, Mr. Duttry has developed a curriculum that's based upon what I think he calls lifetime scenarios, so that a student can see how to buy a car, why and how to get car insurance, how to rent an apartment, what's your responsibility when you have a co-tenant who maybe leaves the premises, what are the consequences of getting married, getting divorced, what the need is for a will or a power of attorney. All of the classes participate in a mock trial, every single one, and a courthouse tour is part of the class as well. The Law Day theme this year refers to technology in some respects and how that affects the law, and Mr. Duttry has added a live video camera to his classroom with a video screen so that the students have a question. They don't necessarily have to wait till the next week or 2 weeks or 3 that one of the speakers comes. Instead, the students can telephone, and some of us have one of those little webcams on our personal computer, so that the question can be sort of live fed to the speaker. Mr. Dutry is very good about giving us the questions in advance if he knows them, which is helpful. But it's this kind of innovation in his classroom that really, I think, has sparked the imagination of the students and why the classes are in high demand. Mr. Sean Dutry has clearly promoted a better understanding of our state and federal constitutions, the Bill of Rights, the rule of law. He certainly encouraged these students, who many already are voting, to understand their own rights, their duties, and their responsibilities as citizens. These students and you are the future of our country, and Mr. Dutry has been an inspiration to many of our future leaders. Mr. Sean Dutry, would you step forward? And please present you with the Liberty Bell Award from the Kitsap County Bar Association for 2010. Would you like to?
I sure would. Okay, when I received this award, I decided to look back at past winners and saw some tremendous people and was really overwhelmed. I still am. And immediately I knew I had to say something when I was up here in front of all of you. And I've had a hard time trying to be as good a speaker as all the past winners. And I've asked a lot of people, and I even asked Judge Peja how I should handle this. And she said to just tell people why you do what you do, which sounded easy. But for 2 weeks now, I've been thinking, why do I do what I do? And it wasn't as easy as I thought. But when I was sitting here and saw all the other award winners, all the students come up here, and seeing them wearing ties, see them professionally dressed, and feeling very proud of their work, I realized that's why I like to teach. We have mock trials, and students dress up, and it's a very powerful feeling to see students actually working towards their future. When I first started teaching, Dale Green was my CTE director, and our school was very much technology oriented, and we were actually the national model for technology. And I was a new teacher, and he had me so excited about technology that that's all I was teaching. When he retired, Dr. Thomas Mosby came, and I saw an opportunity maybe to mix things up. And I was always envious of our social studies department at the school, because in my classes I'd hear them talking about continuing world problems and the debates they had, and I heard students talking about things that sounded like really mattered. And I really wanted to have that in my class. And in Microsoft Word, couldn't really find the avenue for any debates. So my first meeting, we were sitting down, and I said, I'd like to teach a business and personal law class. I'm endorsed in that, and I student taught that subject, and it hasn't been run for a few years. And he said, well, that would be great. I just came from Mount Si, and a teacher there had 5 sections of it running full time. And I said, well, that's what I want to do. And he said, great, do it. I'll support you. And then, sure enough, 4 or 5 years later, we have 5 sections of it, added some things. I also said I want my room to turn into a courtroom. Halfway, or at the end of the year, I want it to just turn into a courtroom for the mock trial. I want it to be really special when we run a mock trial. He supported me on that. Now I have a courtroom in my class. It's just amazing. South Kitsap is a great school. All the teachers really work hard. I feel like an award like this really helps all our teachers there, keep working hard and look out for the future. So I'm just really honored. I'm going to put this on my judge's stand for the mock trials. Maybe my students will listen to me a little better. And I just want to thank you all for coming. This is a great day.
I want to extend on behalf of the bench, thank you to President Olson and to the Bar Association's committee for organizing Law Day. It's a lot of work, but always produces a really wonderful ceremony. Congratulations to all of our award recipients. You should be very pleased and very proud of your accomplishments. Thank you on behalf of the bench to everyone in this room for your commitment to the rule of law and for joining us in our celebration of that commitment today. When we recess, there is a reception in the foyer outside of the room here. I hope you'll spend some time at the reception and talk to each other and meet our award recipients. Thank you very much, and we're adjourned.
Different though, in front of kids.